Hello everyone, Dr. Polaris here. If you pardon the pun, ideas concerning extinct animals and their relationships are never set in stone. From the earliest beginnings of paleontology as a science, academics have proposed sometimes strongly conflicting theories regarding the life of the past, in some cases leading to personal spats and intense rivalry. I've already mentioned the heated clashes between Othniel Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope in my History of Paleoart series, but you could also add to this the dubious theories of Jack Horner concerning the supposed scavenging lifestyle of Tyrannosaurus rex, and even the crackpot ideas put out by people who are not even trained paleontologists, such as Brian Ford and the unfortunately prolific David Peters, a lone voice shouting into the void who thinks everyone is wrong about pterosaurs except him.
Boy, everyone is stupid except me.
The purpose of this video then is to examine some of the most controversial animal groups in the fossil record, ones that have generated significant debate among paleontologists, especially concerning their relationships. Indeed, even well-known and extensively studied species can still jump around in terms of classification. For example, the supposed Urvogel Archaeopteryx, while represented by multiple amazingly well-preserved specimens, and typically thought of as an early member of Avialae, is occasionally argued to have been a dromaeosaurid, or even a part of its own unique Paravian family Archaeopterygidae, alongside animals such as Anchiornis and Kaihong. There can be many reasons why certain groups of species generate controversy, including issues related to fragmentary remains, convergent evolution, and even sheer weirdness. We'll start with the oddballs, as they are the most fun to talk about. Many different extinct animals could be placed in this category, including the bizarre Carboniferous Tully monstrum, a creature that looks like an aquatic alien, and has been classified as a basal vertebrate relative, a mollusk, a tunicate, or some other kind of invertebrate. Many members of the early Cambrian faunal groups could also be found here as well, although some previously very mysterious forms, such as Hallucigenia, are now more clearly understood to be lobopodian invertebrates, related to modern velvet worms, tardigrades and arthropods. However, as tetrapods are more my thing, let's begin with a singular oddball genus, the late Jurassic Chilesaurus. Unsurprisingly native to Chile roughly 147 million years ago, this unusual animal was first described in 2015 and presented paleontologists with a mixture of traits similar to those of theropods, sauropodomorphs and ornithischians, making classifying it very difficult. Measuring about 3.2 metres or 10.5 feet long as an adult, this genus was a relatively slender herbivore with a small narrow skull equipped with spatula-shaped teeth, short but powerful forelimbs with 2 functional digits, and stocky hind limbs that were not well adapted for fast running. The structure of the teeth strongly suggests that Chilesaurus was a specialised herbivore, as does the animal's backward curving pubis bone, which would have accommodated a long gut for digesting vegetation. Such a pelvic arrangement is typical for ornithischians, which has led some authors to suggest that Chilesaurus may be a very basal member of that group, with the teeth also being compared to this lineage of herbivorous dinosaurs. However, other features of the skeleton point towards a theropod identity instead, including elements such as the structure of the metatarsals, characteristics of the tibia, and the opisthopubic pelvis. In 2017, Barrett and Barrett proposed that Chilesaurus may have been a very basal ornithischian, with the theropod-like features of the genus used to support the so-called ornithoscelida hypothesis, with this being the theory that theropods and ornithischians were sister groups. If Chilesaurus was a basal ornithischian, then it would have to have had a very long ghost lineage, given that it lived during the late Jurassic. More recent studies have tended to support a placement within Theropoda, with the unusual traits being examples of adaptation to a specialised plant-eating niche. Andrea Cao and Andre Fonseca independently found Chilesaurus to be a derived oddball theropod, with Cao placing the genus as the sister taxon to Tetanurae, the group that contains Megalosauroidea, Allosauridia and Coelurosauria. It may have lived somewhat like the basal early Cretaceous therizinosaurs from the northern continents, being a relatively slow-moving bipedal browsing herbivore. Other mysterious and unusual dinosaurs at least possess several close relatives, which is the case with the arboreal Scansoriopterygids. These small theropods are known from the mid to late Jurassic deposits in China, between 165 and 156 million years ago, with up to 4 genera having been identified so far. These were among the smallest non-avian dinosaurs, with the genus Epidexipteryx being about the size of a pigeon, and were generally fairly bird-like in appearance, with an insulating coat of hair-like feathers covering the body, while their tails were equipped with elongated ribbon-like feathers, probably used for display. Scansoriopterygids differentiate from other theropods in part by their extremely long third fingers, which were longer than the first and second digits of the hand. At least two genera, Yi and Ambopteryx, also had a long styliform bone growing from the wrist, which, along with the third finger, helped support a bat-like wing membrane used for short glides between trees, a feature unique among dinosaurs as a whole. Other features shared within the group include short and high skulls with downturned lower jaws and large front teeth, which suggests diets composed largely of insects and probably some amount of vegetation. With this odd mixture of traits, including skulls that share anatomical features with oviraptorosaurs, the avialan Sapiornis, and even therizinosaurs, these little tree-dwelling animals have proven very difficult to classify. They were definitely members of the clade Penoraptora, the lineage that contains oviraptorosaurs, dromaeosaurids, troodontids, and avialans, with a range of studies placing them as basal paravians, the sister group to oviraptorosaurs, or as early members of Avialae, possibly related to Anchiornis. For another more modern example of an animal group considered strange and hard to place are the Caecilian amphibians. These cryptic creatures possess legless worm-like bodies, small or sometimes non-existent eyes, and live hidden in soil or stream beds. They are native to wet, humid tropical regions in Central and South America, Africa, the Indian subcontinent, and Southeast Asia. Caecilians possess a range of very specific anatomical and behavioural traits, including heavily built compact skulls that are well suited to burrowing through the soil, a pair of small olfactory tentacles located on the sides of the head, toxin-producing skin, and the ability of the females to produce a white viscous liquid from their cloaca in order to feed their young. In fact, egg-laying female Caecilians tend to demonstrate a significant degree of parental care by guarding their eggs, with several species also growing a special layer of thick skin, which is also used to feed the young, high in fat and other nutrients. This allows the babies to grow by up to 10 times their own weight in just a week. Rather cutely, the babies have been observed to make high-pitched clicking sounds to their mothers when they want to be fed. As adults, Caecilians are generalist carnivores that feed on a variety of small prey, including insects, worms, and vertebrates such as fish, lizards, and frogs. Given that these animals are so different in appearance and behaviour from frogs and salamanders, their classification has been the subject of controversy. Although historically sometimes considered to be true amphibians, it has also been argued that Caecilians evolved from Lepospondyls, a probably false wastebasket clade of early tetrapods from the Carboniferous and Permian that produced many legless species. We'll come back to the Lepospondyls in a minute, but recent fossil finds have helped clear up the relationships of Caecilians. The genus Funcus vermis from the late Triassic of Arizona, described in 2023, is the most basal stem Caecilian so far known, and would have resembled a long-bodied, short-legged salamander, probably having more prominent eyes, unlike its living relatives. The discovery of Funcus vermis provides a strong link between Caecilians and other lysamphibians such as frogs and salamanders, as well as the extinct disophoroid temnospondyls such as Gerobatrachus. This provides strong evidence that lysamphibians evolved from within temnospondyls, probably at some time during the Permian, although the oldest known members of the group hail from the early Triassic. This leaves the position of the so-called Lepospondyls, which have at times been connected to the Caecilians, rather uncertain. Originating in the early Carboniferous, this almost certainly unnatural grouping was incredibly diverse, containing a variety of legless, aquatic, and fully terrestrial species. None were large, with the biggest genus, the salamander-like Diplocaulus, reaching a metre in length, but most were much smaller, and they are assumed to have lived in specialised ecological niches, not taken by the more numerous temnospondyl amphibians that coexisted with them in the Paleozoic. Exactly how these animals were related to early tetrapods is poorly understood. Thanks to Funcus vermis, it seems unlikely that they are close relatives of modern lysamphibians. 5 main groups of Lepospondyls are often recognised, with these being Microsauria, a superficially lizard or salamander-like and species-rich group, Lysophoria, a group with elongated bodies and very small limbs, Aeistopoda, a group of limbless, extremely elongated snake-like animals, Adelospondyli, a group of presumably aquatic forms that resemble aeistopods but have more solidly built skulls, and Nectridia, another diverse group that includes terrestrial and aquatic newt-like forms. When Lepospondyls are considered a natural group, they have often been placed as close relatives of amniotes. Indeed, some of the more lizard-like microsaurs have sometimes been seen as being true amniotes, although this is controversial. The legless, superficially snake-like aeistopods possessed very basal, bony fish-like features of the skull and brain, indicating that they were probably early diverging stem tetrapods. Most of the myriad of other species were probably located close to amniota. Another group that has proven to be a taxonomic nightmare are the Haramyidans, a group of mammalia forms of uncertain affinities. These animals first appeared during the late Triassic, about 216 million years ago, and are mostly known from fossil teeth, which resemble those of the later multituberculates. More recently, better preserved remains have emerged from China, giving us a better understanding of what these animals look like, although debates surrounding their relationships have not been resolved. Different studies come with different answers depending on which Haramyidans are included in their analyses. The two main competing ideas are that they're either close relatives of the multituberculates within the clade Allotheria, or not even part of Mammalia itself at all, belonging among the mammalia form Cynodonts instead. However, the placement and makeup of Allotheria is itself controversial, which is frequently thought to include the multituberculates, the Gondwanatherias, and the Haramyidans as true mammals, filling somewhat rodent-like niches throughout the Mesozoic. Given their basal mammaliform features, such as aspects of their ear bones, vertebrae and heels, Haramyidans may have developed their multituberculate-like traits independently, although several recent studies have found that the entirety of Allotheria, including Haramyidans as early basal forms, to be mammalia forms outside of crown group mammals. If this is true, then multituberculates and relatives would represent an incredibly successful and long-lived lineage, stretching from the late Triassic to at least the late Eocene. The herbivorous Gondwanatherias of the southern hemisphere can be located somewhere in this mess as well, with our understanding of these rodent-like animals only really improving in the last couple of decades, given that they were initially represented by very scrappy remains. All members of this group were herbivorous, with the derived pseudomerachids being among the first mammalia forms to develop adaptations for a grazing lifestyle, with high-crowned molar teeth. Some of these were pretty large by the standards of Mesozoic mammalia forms, with the thankfully almost complete skeleton of the Malagasy genus Adalatherium, revealing a somewhat marmot-like animal the size of a large cat, weighing up to 5 kilograms or 11 pounds. It lived alongside the even larger genus Vintana in the Maastrichtian Meverano formation, which could reach 8.7 kilograms, with both of these animals possessing a bizarre mixture of anatomical features that have made Gondwanatheria as a whole difficult to classify. While almost always thought to be close relatives of multituberculates, debates have occurred over whether they should be considered as multituberculates themselves, or placed outside them elsewhere in Allotheria. As with many extinct animal groups, these issues of classification are not helped by the poor fossil record of Gondwanatherias, with more discoveries in the future being vital for increasing our understanding of them. The problem of fragmentary fossils has hampered scientific understanding of other animal groups as well, with a good example of this being the Megaraptoran theropods. These distinctive-looking predators, with their impressively long and muscular forelimbs, equipped with large sharp claws, seem to have originated in Laurasia during the early Cretaceous. However, the group really seems to have taken off in Gondwana, playing the role of vassal predators to the enormous Carcharodontosaurids, and living alongside the similarly successful Abelisaurids. The majority of known species were native to South America, although could also be found in Australia and almost certainly Antarctica as well, with it currently being unclear if Megaraptorans were present in Cretaceous Africa, India and Madagascar. The vast majority of these animals are known from pretty partial remains, with the specimens that we do have possessing an odd mixture of traits, such as slender hind limbs and teeth similar in structure to those of basal coelurosaurs, while their episcothelous vertebrae are very much like those of Allosaurus. The ilium of the hips is also like that found in the genus Neovenator, meaning that the exact relationship between Megaraptorans and other theropods is controversial. While most studies in the 2020s have found these animals to have been basal coelurosaurs, sometimes as tyrannosauroids, a handful of papers do still support a placement within Carcharodontosauria. There are plenty of other mysterious theropods out there, which, like Chilesaurus, seem to be one-offs without any clear close relatives, but unlike Chilesaurus are represented by scrappy remains. Examples include the slender, long-legged Deltadromeus from the Cenomanian of Morocco, with the holotype specimen consisting of much of the legs, torso and tail, but crucially lacking the neck and skull, meaning that the exact lifestyle of this genus is uncertain. While the holotype measures about 8 metres or 26 feet long, a now lost femur assigned to the animal was much larger, and indicates an individual that may have reached 12 metres or 40 feet long, being among the longest known theropods. The holotype may therefore be a subadult, with many recent studies finding this genus to have been a ceratosaur of some kind. Although the exact position is unstable, it is often grouped within Abellisauroidea, alongside animals often considered to be noosaurids, being placed close to small slender beaked forms such as Lemosaurus and the spectacularly weird Berthosaura, which were both herbivores as adults, indicating that Deltadromeus may have been similar, perhaps living somewhat like a giant ornithomimosaur. Noosaurids as a whole, which are also controversial due to their similarly poor fossil record, are now among my favourite non-avian dinosaurs, as they demonstrate that ceratosaurs could develop a staggering diversity of species, with similar adaptations to derived coelurosaurs. What's more, Deltadromeus itself may be synonymous with the clearly very large enigmatic theropod Bahariasaurus, which is also known from Cenomanian North Africa roughly 95 million years ago. The only fossils confidently assigned to Bahariasaurus were found in the Baharia Formation of Egypt by Ernst Stromer and described in 1934, and consisted of a smattering of postcranial elements, which were enormous in size and clearly belonged to a huge animal that measured between 11 and 12 metres or up to 40 feet long and weighed in at about 4 tons. Although often speculated to have been a tyrannosauroid or perhaps a Megaraptoran, Andrea Cao, in his recent extensive study of theropod relationships published in 2024, argued that Deltadromeus and Bahariasaurus are indeed the same genus, with the animal being placed among the aforementioned more herbivorous noosaurids. If this turns out to be true, then Bahariasaurus could be far weirder than we thought, potentially being a 12-metre long, 4-ton herbivorous or omnivorous ceratosaur with a toothless beaked skull. I for one can't wait for better remains of this genus to be found. A sentiment that goes for all the animal groups covered in this video. There are plenty of other groups that could have been covered here, such as the debate surrounding the potential juvenile nature of compsognaathids, although I think I'll stop here for now. Thanks for watching everyone. The next episode will be covering the early history of primates and their relatives, including another controversial extinct genus, the so-called proto-primate Purgatorius. See you again soon. Cheerio.